I am the network coordinator for the Diets project, and this presentation is being given on behalf of the Diets network. It's particularly being put together by Work Package 3, who are concerned with lifelong learning and its promotion in Europe, and I need to thank Angela Garcia from Spain particularly for putting this together. So let's make a start. We're going to cover about 9 items. I want to introduce what the ECTS system is all about, what its aims, what it measures, how you can use these credits, how they can be transferred between different universities, and also its particular role, or their particular role, in lifelong learning. And then, as Michelle has said, we'll be engaging in some questions later on, so make sure that you sort of keep up to speed as we go along. And if there are any questions because something isn't clear, then we have an opportunity at the end to talk about that. So, firstly, what is the ECTS system? Now, the ECTS system, I see I'm going to have trouble with this, means European Credit Transfer and Accumulation System. And it was introduced as part of the Bologna process some time ago, and it's part of the 3-cycle system of education. Now, you'll probably be familiar with this 3-cycle system: the bachelor degree, and the master's degree, and then the doctoral degree. Now, Bologna also introduced a quality assurance system to make sure that education was of a high quality in Europe, and the recognition of qualifications across Europe. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. How does this work across Europe, and what exactly is the system that can be used? So, what are the aims? The aims are to make teaching and learning in higher education more transparent, so people actually know what they're learning about and are given recognition for what they learn and know. This means that it is transferable, so we can transfer the learning between institutions and countries because it's transparent. And we'll come back to this in a moment. But it also means that learning then, recognized in this way, can be both non-formal and informal, as well as formal. In other words, formal education would be learning that went on in a university, but non-formal and informal learning goes on all the time as we experience new things in our lives. It also aims to promote a learner-centered system of higher education. Now, what does that mean? It means that it puts learning at the heart of the design and delivery of the curriculum, and it gives learners more choice in content, where they study, the way they study, and how much time it takes to study. In a traditional teacher-centered approach, the subject requirements, the knowledge, and the teaching itself were all dictated by the person who had designed the course. Now, we really want to promote and encourage a learner-centered approach because we think it's important that institutions take on the role of facilitating and supporting their learners in actually deciding what it is that they need to know. And of course, this is very important in lifelong learning. So the ECTS are aimed at creating a European higher education area where there is transferability and transparency, and the learner can actually take much more of a role in deciding what it is that they want to study and learn. So we need to measure the outcome of this learning, and that's where ECTS credits come in. ECTS credits measure the amount of work which has been required to meet the learning which has gone on. Oh, excuse me very much. My telephone is ringing. Right, I've sent them away. The workload is the time typically needed for completion of learning outcomes. One module of learning can include 7 to 8 ECTS, the equivalent of about 175 to 240 hours of work or learning that's gone on. The actual time, of course, spent by an individual student may differ. Some people learn more quickly and some people take a little bit longer. But on the whole, one ECTS credit point corresponds to about 25 to 30 hours of work which produce the learning that it has been representing. Learning activities, of course, vary between countries, between universities, higher education institutions, but this is an estimated workload. And the workload, if we look at it in a formal environment, is the sum of the total contact hours, what we call face-to-face teaching, so where you actually are sitting in a classroom, or perhaps in a laboratory, but it also includes the time spent by individuals studying or working alone. They could be working in a group, but they could also be working alone. So, for example, the time taken to finalise notes after you've gone to a lecture, or the time taken to write up a laboratory report, or a practical report, or the revision time, the writing of an essay. All of this is learning hours of work which need to be credited because, of course, you are learning as you go along. So in estimating a student's workload, institutions consider the total time needed by students to achieve the desired learning outcomes. And of course, in formal learning, the institutions have set these learning outcomes. So for a bachelor degree, the learning outcomes are all designed to move the student to become a dietitian. And they have set those learning outcomes. So here you are, face-to-face lessons, study or reflection after the lessons, laboratory, preparing debates, preparing presentations, or work on a literature research can all be given a time element and therefore can be converted into ECTS credits. So again, ECTS credits measure the time required to undergo perhaps an assessment, exams, because of course while you're writing exams, but also while you're preparing, you are learning, and perhaps even the time required for work placements. So the practical placements which students do may well be credited with ECTS points. So the final workload for learning is credited. ECTS can be applied to all types of programs, whatever their mode of delivery. So, They could be working in a school. They could be, as we've already said, perhaps working in a practical placement. But of course, learning goes on both for full-time and part-time. So the learner's status doesn't really matter, because what matters is what they have learned. And because of this, ECTS cover all kinds of learning, both formal learning, non-formal learning, and informal learning. So today, I'm learning how to do a webinar. I'm learning about working with Michelle. I'm learning about you. And if I choose to write up my learning, what I have learnt from all of this, it could be credited with ECTS points.